Giving you an analysis on the Daughters Netflix documentary directed by Angela Patton and Natalie Ray. I'll be giving you four main topics today: my documentary thesis, background on the daughters and dads, two forms of evidence that I found to be extremely persuasive, and I'll be concluding this with whether or not I thought the film was persuasive. Now, the thesis of the documentary is the same as the mission statement from the program, which I think is that it aims to facilitate and encourage strong relationships between fathers and daughters, specifically those separated due to incarceration, because it lays on the premise that father-daughter connections are very strong and important for the overall self-identity and self-worth of the girl. And it ties then to also the overall woman empowerment of the young girl. And I thought this documentary would be very interesting to watch due to my own fondness of my own father-daughter dances. Now, beginning of the documentary, we never learn why these men are incarcerated, which I think is deliberate by the directors to really humanize these men, because these men might be in jumpsuits, but they are also people who have agreed to be a part of a 10-week program with the life coach you see there on the top, where they talk really about self-accountability and fatherhood and manhood and beginning that road to forgiveness from their daughters, who I'd like to introduce now. We have Rosiah, who's 15. Her and her father Alonzo's relationship, I would say, is the strongest from start to beginning, which can't be said for Jayana, who's 11. Her and her father Frank are estranged from the beginning. And even though Frank is released by the end of this, I would still say it's very emotionally awkward for the two of them, which can't be said for Santana, who's 10 years old. Her and Mark, I would say she starts off the most angry, but thanks to his release at the end of the film, their relationship also does a complete 180. Sadly, can't be said the same for Aubrey. Her and her father Keith were still separated by the end of the documentary, and the relationship really kind of has a downfall where it kind of starts really, really, really loving, and it's not the same towards the end, which brings me to my first piece of evidence I found to be persuasive, which was the personal testimonies, as we know, which are just observations and judgments based off the credible sources of people who were actually there within, 5 to 10 years, which is when this film was released. And these people do have some competency about what they're talking about, since it's their own life, like Rosiah here, who's talking about she's scared of her relationship with her father only worsening because he's already missed a lot of milestones and he's only going to continue missing them, which really speaks to what the whole point of the program is to better that relationship and ease that fear. Or Keith here, who's talking during the therapy session, maybe, or not, but realizing that he has only been perpetuating generational trauma. And again, that's something that the program really kind of facilitates. And that brings me into my second piece of evidence I found to be the most persuasive, which is the artifact of the film itself. I really think that the persuasiveness really comes from the montages and also the scope of the people that they show. They only follow 4, but the entire program, I think, has up to like 30 men. And they do a great job of choosing girls who really kind of hit all the bases. They're also very typical of their category. They're daughters who have fathers who are incarcerated, and all the film shots are very relevant. They really kind of speak to something that only a film can give, which would be like the scene with Aubrey having basically a dissociative episode while her mother's narrating the scene on top, talking about her separation anxiety she has from watching her father being taken, or this scene of all the fathers who aren't even part of the actual documentary, like interviews, who are sitting. You just have this moment like, oh my gosh, all these men really sat and went through 10 weeks long to try to better their relationships with their daughters, which is why I think overall this documentary was very persuasive, and you should definitely give it a watch if you ever have the time. So thank you so much for watching my video.